Welcome back to the Overnight Success Podcast. Today, I have a guest with me, Ben-Jamin Toy. We go back, no, I got to do the math quickly. That's like 9 years, I guess. We met back in
That long?
2016.
Wow.
It's that long. Yeah, it was like time flies, right? Especially when you throw COVID in the middle of everything, like time just kind of transforms on itself. But
Overnight
yeah, so
friendship.
yeah.
That's kind of how it was.
You might be going in the top list of one of my longest friends, which is great.
Oh,
You've
wow.
married
Nice.
me and Brittany and everything else, which is great. But let's talk a little bit about you. So, just your very basic introduction here. But founder of On Purpose Adventures, co-owner of Nature Adventures and Cohesion Culture. So, three different businesses that you're kind of running. Some, I'm sure, are more involved during certain times of the year than others. But kind of want to learn very quickly, like, what does your normal week look like? I know it looks a little bit different in the summer than the fall, but what is your lifestyle today? And then we're going to kind of start working back to how you created this overnight success.
Awesome. Yep. Great question to start. But also, I am married of 10 years, and I know I owe a lot of the success to being married to an incredible woman that has helped me give me a foundation, because I'm going to talk about the background a little bit and what that allowed us to do. But right now, day to day is wide open. Have companies that are almost completely manager led, so I'm able to fill in on try to work on the business in some cases. So in the summers, our kayaking shop, which is over 20 years old, we've only owned it for about 8 years, but manager led. I go in and handle marketing, partnerships, networking, things like that. So I go to different events for Nature Adventures. But also do VIP tours, do sunrise tours, evening tours, so don't have to work about payroll issues when the timing of those tours. We are actually only open 9 to 5, which is something we learned through COVID. We didn't have to be open 8 to 8 like we used to be. So I just do early morning tours or late evening tours. A, because it's fun, and B, it's just a little extra cash revenue for doing those, which is fun. On the On Purpose, the team building side of things, a lot of phone calls, sales calls during the week. And then prior to events, there's some agenda building, packing for the certain things. We are a suitcase ready outfit. But operation wise, have a team that runs it, office team that runs it, and then have some facilitators that are pretty self-guided in many ways. So pretty flexible in that aspect. I've recently gotten the pickle bug, and so my weeks right now, this summer, are a little different than they ever have been, in that I'm playing a little more pickleball than I probably should. But I'm getting pretty good too. So it's been a blast. When the fall and spring are team building season, so our kayaking business kind of tapers off, where we get busy fairly quickly in the fall when kids are back in school. Companies are doing their retreats, their off-sites, their trainings, their kickoffs in the beginning of the year. So we're pretty busy planning for and facilitating events, and we travel nationally. So, I may only do a couple events a week, but there's travel in between them, etc. We also virtually operate stuff, so I can remotely facilitate events at the same time. Prior
Yeah.
to COVID, we used to do 22 events in a weekend. We are less weekend focused and now corporate driven during the week. Now we do the occasional weekend because of the way a retreat might be situated, but for the most part, we are a Monday through Friday operation on the team building side of things. But that's a lot of fun too. So I one wheel, which is a skateboard with a big wheel in the center, and by doing something fun, that's how I met some of my facilitators. So now I have facilitators that work on scavenger hunts, and they get to ride their one wheel while they facilitate. So I've tried to incorporate play and fun into a lot of what we've done.
Yeah, I love that. And so, like, when we look at overnight success, looking at you now is like Ben's got the sweet dream, right? Like, he's playing pickleball, he's riding his one wheel. You're having fun in your business. So this fall, like you said, like, yes, business picks up and you'll be busy and traveling, but you're having fun doing that. I'm kind of curious how, actually, we haven't talked exactly how you got in here. I know the path, but I don't really know what led you to this, right? Like, I mean, the Nature Adventures thing, the paddleboard rental, that's one thing. But yeah, the team building, like, how did you get here from your past? And we'll start working backwards from there.
I'll first also mention the other piece is with Cohesion Culture. I have a business partner on that one. I spend actually a little bit more brain time working on that project because we have courses, books. We have 2 books that one came out already, another book coming out. So there's a little more brain energy work on that stuff. As far as the day we're recording videos, creating content, things like that. So there is a little bit more on that. How I got into what I did, it was a history of working with companies that probably had bad culture or leadership, at least in my opinion, from what I saw. So to get into there, we got to start in, I was an industrial engineer student at a engineering college, Clemson, and worked at an automotive world for a while. Was 21 years old, being fast-tracked, at least I, seemed how it was going. Was leading a project that had 25 people reporting to me, or at least that I was doing reports that I had to go check in with 25 people. Made some great strides on turning that 30-hour-a-week project into a hour of work for the week. Thought, hey, I'd get Friday offs now. Nope. That's where I learned you get rewarded with more work, but no pay. Cultural differences within the organization, corporate America just in general, my behavior style being a high dominance factor. I went into the plant manager's office one day, wanted to ask him out to eat, just pay for lunch, treat him. I wanted to say, if I'm being fast-tracked, I want to know what life looks like at this organization. The next day, that was only to schedule the call or the lunch. The next day I was in the office of one of my managers, and so there were 3 levels of managers in between me and him. And they said, why did you try to talk to him without their permission? Now I get the hierarchy, I understand the ego piece, but not talking to somebody without permission was the one that got me, right? I understand going above heads, and I've learned, I understand how that can be perceived and all these things. Still don't agree with it. I understand their perspective at this point. But not being able to talk to somebody, right? Especially when you say you have an open door policy, right? So left at college, helped a buddy start a ticketing software company. Then we created a book publishing company. Did well, got it up to 7 figures, and at that time we were very similar in personality style, and realized that both being the same at the top wasn't always a good thing. So I bowed out, left that, took about a year off or so, and enjoyed some time. Then the next year started with a trucking company, sales. So I went from engineering to then everything else I was doing sales, because I learned that I was the most rewarded for my ability in sales. I'll caveat that with I'm an introvert, so I've learned.
Yeah.
But I approach sales as an introvert. I am a very systematic person when I went through leads and calls and all that. Now I haven't had to do I have not done cold calls and things like that for 15 years. But when I did, I was very thorough, and it was the game aspect of it that I really enjoyed of that. Came in, had a decent base salary with that trucking company, and they said, here's you'll start getting commissions once you get $300,000 a month revenue. So I got that in 2 years. They were expecting 5. And for 6 months, they then found every single reason not to pay me commissions.
Moving that carrot, yeah.
And I was in a mastermind at the time, and long story shorter, they said, well, what are you going to do about that? And I went in that day and put my notice in. They're like, can you give us a month instead of 2 weeks? I'm like, yeah, I have no plan or money or anything, so yeah, sure. I literally left my job with no plan, no money. And I said, if I'm going to go fight for money, I'm going to go do it on myself. And then out of that mastermind was birthed the idea of On Purpose Adventures, which originally started as adventure event planning. I wanted to get paid to do things that I wanted to do. Whitewater rafting, camping trips, survival trips, things like that. And that's what it started off as, but then I learned very quickly, when you don't have a stockpile of money or investors or whatever, you can't live on the money for an event that's 6 months or 9 months in the future, because you're going to have expenses, you're going to have possible cancellations, you're going to have all these refunds, things that could happen. So I learned very quickly that the event planning world like that was a very different one at that time of my career. So we pivoted and figured out what was a more stable operation, still wanting to do those style events, but I needed something else, and that's where we became adventure-based bachelor and bachelorette parties. Mainly just bachelor parties, because if you've ever seen a bachelorette party, You know, they go off the rails sometimes.
Not
So
as much. Well, there's a type of adventure, but maybe not the adventure you were trying
right,
to
right.
help
Well, it's
build.
funny. We've been doing this for several years. We did paintball, we did kayaking and camping, and all kind of fun stuff in Charleston, because Charleston at the time, this would have been 2012, was up and coming bachelorette scene, and we were the only ones in town doing anything like this. There's probably 15 bachelorette planning companies now that weren't there then. So we did scavenger hunts too and things like that. And several years into that, I had a manager with On Purpose that said, "Why don't we do bachelorette parties?" I'm like, "You can handle that." And we opened it up. I invested in it. We did that. And after the second one, she's like, "Okay, I get it." So just to be the reason why was, and this actually was probably the predecessor of why I eventually went out from doing individual style events and doing corporate. Corporate has one person making a decision for the most part, or a small panel. But you're not. If I do a 100-person event, I'm not talking. The other 100 people don't have to make a decision, right? So, a bachelor party, the best man or whoever's planning is like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Okay, do it. Make it happen." For the majority of guys, they're pretty simple and they just go along with it. You get a lot more cooks in the kitchen with a bachelorette party. So
Yeah.
it was a lot more strife to our world. So anyways, along that way, we developed a scavenger hunt and team building program, did a little bit more of that, and that became a little bit more of our focus starting 2018, 2019. Had the best quarter of our existence in the first quarter of 2020, and then things changed. And when you're in an in-person event business, it really changes a lot. So between April and the end of 2020, we were down at 98% revenue for the year. Over the year, only down 68%, but that's because of how good our first quarter was. But that really helped. That really made my mindset change on how I handled the transaction in the business, like the invoicing, but also creating now virtual and remote options. So we are uncancelable, but also wanting to have the desire, and this is what ended up happening within Cohesion Culture, is trying to create some ongoing revenue things like online courses and training. So it didn't matter if we weren't physically involved with anybody. So that is the journey to getting us now. I was broke. All my money ran out, which wasn't much, in early 2013. And one of my partners was Nature Adventures Outfitters, and I emailed the owner and said, "Hey, I need a job. I need a part-time job because business wasn't consistent. The winter was slow." And she's like, "Okay, April 1st, show up." So I learned how to work the kayak ramp, and within a couple months was a kayak guide, and did that for a number of years. And then a few years after that, I met my wife on the ramp. A couple years after that, we then bought the business. So I think a lot of things changed in that. Now there's a lot more of the challenges. So however you want me to go into those, I can share.
Yeah, I want to go into the challenges, but I kind of want to go back a little bit to, you're at the trucking company and then you quit. Like, entrepreneurship at that point wasn't, I'm curious, like, what entrepreneurship meant to you at that time, right? Because, like, back then, not that was so long ago, but entrepreneurship today with social media looks a lot different than what it was back then. And was it just, I want to make money for myself, or I want to create a lifestyle? Like, I'm curious, like, what were you looking for in entrepreneurship, or what did you believe that was going to look like when you put in that notice at the trucking company?
It was very different, and it's kind of crazy. And I look at it like, if I had the tools now, then back then, how things would be different, because I was active in trying to create my social profile back then. Now I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it. So I don't want to do videos. I don't want to do like constant, and I know there's plenty of money for it. That's just not my motivator. So the motivation was, I'd already had a side hustle. I was deep into entrepreneurship as a desire for 10, 15 years prior to that, because of the books put in my hand. I had side hustles where I was selling stuff or any little thing here and there. I always had some side gig outside of my other job, so I've always done that. My mother was self-employed. My grandfather owned some restaurants. But my version of self-employment, and here's where I make a key difference. There's a difference between being a self-employed person, a business owner, and an entrepreneur. Tony Robbins gives a good talk on what those differences are. I'm not going to really get into the semantics. My mother was self-employed. She worked. If she didn't work, she didn't get paid, right? My grandfather owned businesses. He wasn't a entrepreneur in the sense that his businesses came from his mother, and he ran them, didn't expand, didn't do anything else, wasn't trying to do anything different with his businesses, right? The willingness for risk, I think, is the biggest, even though I said I wasn't going to go into it. Entrepreneurship is the willingness for risk tolerance. And I was okay with that because mindset-wise, I've been prepared to, it's okay to fail and fail faster and go forward. That's the books I've read. I've read 500 plus books, business, motivational, self-help, biographies, autobiographies, things like that. And so I was prepared for it. And at the time, I was single, no kids, nothing to lose. I was willing to put in for it. But the motivation wasn't the money, because it really hasn't been astronomical. It's been a good lifestyle. But the motivation was not controlled by schedule or the lack of funds or the ability of making a windfall in 1 month and being able to take off a couple months. Like, I was able to do enough in the fall one season to take off December, January, and February. Now, this is probably not the lifestyle that most people want to have, because I lived on a very tighter budget on those other months, but I could do it. And without responsibility, it was a big deal there. So, technically On Purpose started July of 2011. Had some big events, some major things that happened that were good that year. Made a good handshake deal with a county park system here to produce a race at the end of 2012. So 2012 was great. We had lots of events. Things were starting to pop, but things weren't consistent. And I was pouring everything into the business. But also had side hustles. Here's where I want to most, this entire thing was not just me hoping I was going to make it, but all I talked to about when I talked to people was the business, the adventures, things like that. What wasn't seen then was my overnight security jobs that I was doing, my demolition jobs, my mold remediation or crawl space jobs, things like that. I did whatever I could to get money, cash money, things like that. Worked at an Italian ice company doing some business-to-business stuff. Kept me going, had a flexible schedule, allowed me to do my events. Even when I then started, I was already doing that kind of stuff. Actually, big part of my story and that journey then was selling plasma. It's not donating plasma, you sell plasma. And so I was making, because of my weight, upwards of 150 to 175 a week just in plasma. So that got me by. That was, at that time, paid my rent for a while and fed me. So
where was your mental state in this? Because through one lens, it would just be Ben is struggling and scavenging for money any which way, right? When you talk about selling plasma, it's just you're just trying to survive, which might be one angle. But it also sounds like there was some strategy there at the same time, because there's a lifestyle that you were either trying to build in that moment, or you knew that you were only so far away from a specific lifestyle.
I knew it was a passing through point for this kid. I knew that it was temporary, or even if it was longer, I was having a blast. Right. I was getting paid to play. Actually, I wasn't even getting paid sometimes. Literally, I would just plan events that just my portion was covered. And so I got to go. Whitewater rafting or camping. And I just let people know my skill sets. And I got hired by a couple and went camping with them out to a place and showed them how to set up tents and all that. I made peanuts, but they covered all the food. They did all the activities. It was great. Who knew you could get paid to camp? Well, now I do.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is now we do survival training, and I can charge more for providing less. We don't even provide a tent or a sleeping bag. But the knowledge that we provide so you don't die is the one that's worth more, right? Getting in a sleeping bag, whatever. But making sure you've done your shelter right so that the water doesn't come in, that's a whole different ballgame. But mindset-wise, I loved it. It was great. I loved the flexibility. I loved having no schedule. Now, I would say at this point it's important to say that my pendulum has swung back, because at that time, my biggest motivator was not being controlled. I absolutely don't like being controlled. So I literally went to the opposite side of, yay, free and fancy, no schedule, no nothing. And I'm back to the point that no, there's some need for schedule. There's some need for consistency. And 2020 showed me that I have adult ADHD, which was not, either I didn't have it or it wasn't noticeable prior, because I was always in the hyper phase of we were busy. And this is where in 2020 it taught me the difference between busyness and productivity. Because I could do 22 events in a week or a weekend and I never miss a beat because I'm always on the next thing. So I'm always focused. Well, now I have 8 to 10 hours a day of not anything in my plan to do. And my hobby was trying to get my business going again. Like I didn't pick up a hobby like woodworking, like some folks that got furloughed and had a self-employed person. I had no chance for getting money. Like there was nothing that I was getting from the government. Until later, we did get an EIDL loan, but that actually paid for staff and some other things that we created. So that was a good spend, good investment, but it wasn't like we just pocketed it or whatever. It was trying to keep the business alive. But now the pendulum's back, probably in the middle. I don't have much of a schedule. I think, like I said earlier, at this point, the schedule is my pickleball opportunities to play with people. I have Monday meetings. Everything else is based on client events. So I've had to add scheduling to and structure to, let's say schedule. I've had to add structure to my day to help me focus and knowing what's next. Because if I have a reason to get out of the house, I'm way more productive. I get up earlier and do things, I'm way more productive for the day. So I've had to add that in when I didn't want to do any of that. And which meant I loved my lack of structure, but it also probably slowed my growth down because I wasn't in there trying to sell on a daily basis. It's hard. I didn't know how to sell my services because we really didn't know what we are. But I alluded to that big event. So we ended up producing the largest zombie race in the Southeast starting October of 2012. So it seemed like forever ago. We had that event. It was a massive success. 1,500 people in attendance. It was great. Luckily, Hurricane Sandy came through that day and kept some people away, or we would have had some traffic issues. We were at a brand new park. It was a great day. 3 days after that, I'm packing up all my stuff, putting it in storage because I couldn't afford rent on a consistent basis. Or my choice was I'd rather take that money and live on it or put it into the business. So then for the next 9 months, I couch surfed, legit couch surfed, which is an organization you can travel with and stay on couches. Back in the day, it was a very different organization. I called up friends, stayed a night here, 2 nights here. One place gave me a week. And actually, Tinder. Tinder was quite helpful at that time. It was a very different style of Tinder. I actually would say, I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking for a couch. And surprisingly, that happened. And there was some places I stayed, I never even met the girl. I just stayed on a couch. And things you cannot do in today's world.
No, I was going to say, letting a stranger come sleep on your couch, there's no way.
Yep. I had a very honest face, I guess, so,
yeah.
But it worked. It was great. So I stayed in 36 different places in 9 months. Sometimes I could pay for, did a spot for 2 weeks or whatever, rented a room out for a month, but like nothing consistent. And basically it was, he's like, you got the room until an official roommate comes in. Like, okay, great. I also then made my bed. Everything was in storage. I wasn't pulling it out. My bed was a hammock in the room. I literally tied eye bolts into the studs. Yeah. So great experience. While that happened, I was doing the side hustle of nature adventures, working as much as I could. And then finally get a place fall of 2013. And then a year later is when I met Dana, my wife, on the ramp, both doing our part-time jobs. She was a photographer. She had a good corporate job. I was guiding, which was, I considered, even though it was my majority of my income, it was my part-time hustle because On Purpose at the time was my focus. We met, got married 9 months later, then bought the business in 2017, which was really funny because I've always had the entrepreneur bug, with the side hustles or whatnot. And the previous owner to Nature Adventures, as we signed the paperwork, she's like, did you ever think you're going to own this? I'm like, really want to know? Yes. The day that I started working there, I knew I was going to own it. I had a vision of it. So I never said it, but I knew I was going to own the business. So
That's awesome.
you know, it was in my, because I'd made a choice of going from the corporate engineer world, like this is the perfect thing for me. And now it's vertically integrated. Like, so if I coach clients to say, hey, there's team building, which is skill set enhancement. There's team bonding, which is fun, but get to know you, and there's entertainment. Well, Nature Adventures can solve those. And so it was a great way to make some things happen, vertically integrating.
Yeah. Now, did you think of that vertical integration when you started working at Nature Adventures, or you saw that cohesion come together after you kind of knew both businesses?
Well, the vertical integration was actually already there. That's why I had the connection to the company, was because I hired the boats and the guides to take some of my people out. So I was, as a planner of adventure and bachelor parties, we were planning these types of trips with groups, but I hadn't been trained for any of this stuff yet. And so it worked out. Now I just, my margins got a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. And did you have your sight on the corporate world when you were doing bachelorette parties, or is it one of those things that like you learn and you adjust along the way?
I don't know where. There was a lot of mud thrown on the wall. And what it came down to was this became a financial decision. I realized I could charge more and get larger groups. I mean, the biggest bachelor party we ever did was 20 people, and that's big. Most were 8 to 12. There's a max of how much you can make on that kind of thing, right? Luckily enough, we were on the high end of all that because my main clients were engineers, doctors, lawyers. I mean, my average age for the bachelor party was probably 29, 30. So I wasn't dealing with the really young ones. I was more later in life guys that are somewhat established. So it was so the bachelor parties were pretty legit. But along the way, I was doing corporate stuff here and there. And then it's like, they are happy with a whole lot less effort because they've also done some really cheesy things in the team building world, right? They've done any video you can see that they say is team building, like there's cheesiness to it. And I'm a non-rah-rah guy and I want them to get results, and so they're going to remember it. And I get messages literally from folks years later, or folks that have changed jobs and still remember what they took away from the event they did because of how we've structured our training in that aspect. Or you do a game and then the lesson that comes after it. So we've realized that our methodology, I think possibly because I'm an industrial engineer and my process is different, and then the introvert side of it, I make it friendly for everybody, but an extrovert will still have fun. And that's a big thing, and we've gotten referrals. So I've had my sights on that, and it was just easier dealing with one person, because I tried doing some other public events where you have to market and sell to individuals, and that's just a nightmare. I am not wired that way to deal with individual concerns. Like, have you read the frequently asked questions? Have you watched the videos? No and no. So I don't have the patience for that. But dealing with one person that's making a larger financial decision, I can work with you on that. But if you're having all these questions and taking up an hour of my time for a $50 event, I'm not going to do, for a $50 ticket, let me say that, I'm not going to spend that time. And that's just the way I'm wired. I'm a good salesperson. I'm not a marketer. So the idea of marketing or getting the word out to get large events happening just wasn't that good. I wasn't that good at. Tried to even partner with some marketing agencies, never really got it, because I got some really good ideas for some big events, just need the help marketing wise to do it. And so I'd love to partner. And one thing that's changed over the course of the years, where I always wanted to do it myself and own my own thing, I am way more open to partnerships now and franchises and things like that than I ever have. I've done my own thing. I don't need to figure it out anymore. So for consistency, partnering with folks that have different skill sets. And the reason I'm more open to this is I've watched some friends that are business owners that have started 7 businesses that are all over 7 figures, and it all starts with a really good contract at the beginning on how you're going to operate. As long as you figure out that part up front, the rest of the business is easy. You say, here's your lane, here's where we overlap, here's where we do this. And so I am definitely open to doing all of that stuff now, because then you're able to grow exponentially rather than what my thoughts were.
Yeah, I like that, and it's there's a lot of things in here because you moved to corporate for the higher margins, to your point, but it wasn't as much so because you just wanted to become rich. It was you wanted a lifestyle that allowed you more breathing room, right? Like that's
Right.
all you were really looking for, and you were strategic with it, where you didn't bend over backwards in order to fit that mold. So you were very strategic in the direction that you went. Like corporate, sure, like blanket, everybody knows corporate probably has more money. Cool, like there's that. But to your point, you weren't going to copy the 10 other team building. What are the things? No trust falls and
No rope scores and no death by PowerPoint.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So like you wanted to like, hey, I'm going to come and play in this world that I know I can do well in, but I want to do it my way because
Right.
these are the things that I want to make sure stay true to me. And you built a successful business out of that. And you had the confidence to do that because like there's sometimes I know with me with my shiny object syndrome with different business ideas, it's like, oh yeah, there's thousands of different ways to make money. What's the right one? And like what am I going to have to do in order to do that? But you took your skill set and said, with my systems background, me being an introvert, how do I make this business successful without having to like bend over backwards?
So, true confidence only comes from successes you've had. Like to be confident in your abilities means you've done it past and you know you can do it again. But there is a hack on that, and that is visualization or imagination. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a memory and your imagination. It's an on ramp. It's something you're able to do, visualization is used in sports all the time. And the easiest way to explain this, you probably watched the Olympics and watched a bobsled team, right? Four person bobsled team. They're in the bobsled and they're visualizing, turn one, turn two, straight away. Like they're in it and they're visualizing in their head when they're not moving. Sports, you run routes, you do all these things. You can do visualization in business. We were successful in the book publishing company because we role played, but I envisioned and played out conversations with some people that we should not have any business talking to as early in business as we were, that we closed deals on, because I played through the scenarios in my head over and over and over again. So when I got to that objection, it wasn't the first time heard it. I'd heard it probably 50 times before, but just not verbally out loud. And so visualization and these events, I actually was asked that by a client who we did something custom for the very first time. And I let them know it's the first time I'm doing it, just so they like, hey guys, because they ask for details. I'm like, I don't have details. I'm making this up. But my confidence in that was actually reassuring to them in the sense that I'm like, by the time we get there, I'm going to think through the things that could go wrong. I've done a site visit. I've seen the areas. I think about the walk time of this and the people moving from this to this. Like I've played that out in my head so much. So that's what's given me the confidence to do first time events with such confidence, because it's not the first time I've seen it, just the first time I've seen it in real life. So I think that's my biggest hack or secret to my success is the God-given ability that we have to play our imagination. But I've also learned that 10% of folks don't see in pictures or can't think through that. So it stinks. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'll say it's funny. I've taken visualization. I could see it going bad actually in two ways, and I love the way that you're looking at this. One, I've built very successful businesses in my head multiple times. Right? You have the dream state, and that those are the fun things. And sometimes you live that out so much that like you almost get all of the dopamine hits off of it because you've kind of visualized that. Which I know that was always an issue sometimes with affirmations of like when you set goals of big races, like, well, you kind of already live it, then you cross the finish line and it's not as fun as what you imagine in your head. So there's that negative side. But I also like when you went through the challenges that could have come up, that might have that can scare people away at the same time. But you looked at it as, hey, I know 20 different ways that this can go wrong and I have an answer for all 20 of them. So if one of those pops up, been there, done that, like let's move on to the next thing. So I think that is a great way to use imagination, not just like get into that imposter syndrome or overwhelm yourself.
I also have a mindset that is everything that I'm experiencing is training for something in the future. Everything.
Yeah.
Or it's a beneficial, like, the divine delays that God has for me or whatever are, okay, being stuck in traffic. Well, that avoided the wreck that I could have had, or that, I look at everything, the flat tire that I got. okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? Like, I look at pretty much everything like that as supposed to happen for a reason. What's it going to be? What are my eyes supposed to be open to? Or often I'm like, this is going to be a great story. And I think that's one of the unique abilities that is not unique to me, but it's a unique ability that has to be learned and practiced, that I know how to put myself in that perspective in the moment, not looking after it after it's done, but like literally in the moment. I'm like, oh, let me take notes of what's actually happening, like mentally, so I can actually reflect on it later.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. So I'm looking here at time. So overnight success, you're really, you said on purpose was January of 2011. Do I have that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And where do you,
July of 2011.
July of 2011. And at what point did you feel maybe that you made it, or like you could breathe a little bit easier? I'm wondering if it was that. I mean, COVID aside, when you went down to a 98% loss, when do you feel like she's like, hey, like my company is what I envisioned it to be?
I wouldn't say there was true comfort in what we were doing. I mean, there's still a lot of hustle. I mean,
Sure.
I work a lot when I work, but then I have the lifestyle that I can do some other things. But I get exhausted, right? So it's still fun, but it's exhausting. But I would say that not made it. I would say that we reached a level of comfort that was desired probably 2023.
Okay.
So yeah, 12 years later or so.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
So the 10 years to overnight success, yours might have been 12, but yeah, that's great.
in the sense that that was the year that we decided, my wife, well, by led by hearing the Holy Spirit, that my wife was no longer going to work, and so for the last 3 years she has not worked. So that's, we can get by in this scenario. So that now we have this flexible lifestyle. So that's the success. Do we have pockets of extra money where we can go travel the world or do things? No. I mean, I drive an '01 Yukon. Like, it's older than most of my staff, right? It's not a big deal. I have a hand-me-down. My wife did get a new car. We got a nice thing for her, but there's a whole cool story on a whole nother podcast. But I'm driving her hand-me-down, Pathfinder. So it's the newest car I've ever had, but I've also paid cash for things now. So, so when we buy those things, they're business expenses. They allow for the life to happen, lifestyle. But it wasn't probably until 2022, 23 that I shouldn't have, but I've taken the throttle off a little bit. And it needs to go back on because I really want to get these passive things done and all that so I can do more. And actually, one thing I need to point out, I used to do group stuff like nonprofits and youth organization stuff for the on-purpose team building stuff. And I don't do that anymore. I only focus on corporate. So I can charge the rates and then do my youth stuff for free. I didn't want to have to haggle on their budget and a donor coming in and all that. I'm like, I have the ability and skill set that I can charge the rates that I charge. And companies still say that I should charge double what I charge. And it's still crazy. I have literally 10x'd a client since 2018 to 2 years ago doing another event for them. And same smaller group, and I 10x the rate. So I feel totally confident in what I can charge. I don't want to haggle with a youth organization on pricing. So now I get to choose to do those for free when I can. So I want to give deserving youth wild at heart, adventurous, experiences.
Yeah, I love that. And you stuck to the lifestyle that you wanted. I think with social media, sometimes I'm guilty of it. You get caught up in these other lifestyles. Like, oh, I want the lifestyle of the family that gets to travel to Europe every summer and all this and that. But like, honestly, like, if I didn't know about it, I probably wouldn't be that interested in it. But the pictures looked cool, so now all of a sudden I'm interested in it. But for you wanted the flexibility. Right now, pickleball is your thing, so you have that flexibility, and you also have the flexibility to do these youth group activities, and like that's all you need. There was no reason to triple your lifestyle just because it looked cool somewhere else. Like you knew exactly what you wanted, and like you've built up to that.
I've been blessed somehow to not have much FOMO, because I think I truly am secure in my identity of what I want and who I am. And so, yeah, those other things, yeah, that's nice. It'd be cool. Hey, that'd be a great experience. Just recently went on a week-long off-roading Jeep trip in Colorado and New Mexico. Amazing. really understand what a Jeep can do now. I understand it. Still don't want to buy one.
Yeah.
So much better to rent one. Like if you're not doing it for what it's for, don't want to buy one, right? So it was a blast. It was incredible. But I also love the ability that I can go do that and go do these other things and just travel as needed. You know, I love to pick up and go and be flexible, but the businesses allow that. And I didn't realize, you know, I used to think I worked remotely before COVID because I could take phone calls and sales calls and emails remotely. Now we have programs that I can facilitate remotely. So I can make my money while I'm somewhere else. And 2 years in a row, I had a repeat as three-year client, but 2 years in a row, I was actually at a conference. I was remotely facilitating their event by checking in with them on my phone at a conference.
That's incredible.
And that's something that I never even thought was possible prior to 2020. I didn't. So it took a big pivot in my way of understanding productivity and not just being busy.
Yeah, yeah, I like that, and that might that's probably one that was a positive pivot. Like, if we go back to you not bending over backwards for people, like you found a way that you could still be just as much, you can create just as much value with less energy.
Well, there's also, you know, my business partner with Cohesion Culture is Dr. Troy, incredible man. I've learned so much from. We have the 2 books coming out. We have the projects together. His corporate rise story is very different. You know, traditional education, and he has probably a better lifestyle than I will ever have, right? He's been an executive for a very long time, nice house, able to travel, you know, at a nice level. But I also haven't put the time in that he has too, because I also am taking a lot of time now, right? So there's a balance, right? Are you going to be okay for now, or do you want to have enough later to do it? And, you know, he's been able to travel corporately for a while, and it's been incredible. Just we have choices to make, right? What are you going to go after and whatnot? And for me, it's being able to go and say, hey, what are you doing on Tuesday afternoon, and take 3 hours and go do something. I've wanted that the term back then was lifestyle engineering, and I wanted to do that. I wanted to engineer my life so that I could be in control, because remember, I didn't want control. So, but I'm realizing now I can control my schedule and my structure, and I need to do that. So I'm aware of that, and then the goal will be to actually make more income, so then do more philanthropic things, more youth-oriented things.
I love that. Well, thanks, Ben. I know you were active on LinkedIn, so people can find you on LinkedIn. onpurposeadventures.com is the other location. We've got the books. You said 2 books. What are the titles of both of those books?
Becoming a Cohesive Leader, the Power-Up Guide to Grow, Develop, and Advance Your Career. So if you're ever looking like you're not getting trained or whatever, we provide a very walkthrough approach to how to advance yourself. And then the Cohesive Sales Approach comes out in October. And it is for inbound sales. And both books are centered on the cohesion framework, which is belonging, value, and mutual commitment.
Yeah, great. So you're really bringing in that great human factor into leadership and just like to the culture standpoint of things. But I think there's some entrepreneurship sprinkled in there too. So yeah, onpurposeadventures.com. Find you on LinkedIn if they want to connect. If they're sitting here thinking, I wish we had some amazing team building or team bonding experiences that didn't have trust falls, I think you'd be great. And like you said, you do stuff here in Charleston area, but you also travel or can do remote. So there's no objections there.
And if anybody's actually just listening, it's Ben-Jamin. So it's Benjamin with a dash between the N and the J. On LinkedIn, there you'll see HSG. HSG stands for high school graduate. So that when you find that one, that's me.
Yeah, and you'll see yellow camo everywhere. Yeah. Well, thanks, Ben. I really appreciate having you on here. As always, like you said, 9 years of friendship now. You've married. You were the officiant at Brittany and I's wedding, and we've gone through a lot of different things together. So appreciate you jumping on with me today and learning deeper about your story. I learned a lot, even though we've been talking about this for 9 years. So really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.